Hey there, Professor Johnson. This is Nick Toomey, and I am doing my video assignment for the final learning activity about 3 things that I learned in this class. So the first thing that I learned that I thought was really helpful was the prophetic approach to youth ministry. Talking about how there were 3 types of youth ministry in today's culture of YMIN. There's traditional, liberal, and activist. And talking about the pros and cons of each one, I thought was really, really helpful because I could see in each context he was talking about those played out in different churches and congregations. I was so intrigued by this article that I shared it with my youth leaders after a Young Life event, and kind of explains the dangers of an overemphasis on one. I think I grew up in a more traditional style YMIN group, focusing on the tenets of faith and the sacraments and the creeds and Bible studies and understanding our spiritual brokenness. But I think what Young Life does really well, and I kind of applauded my leaders, is we totally focus on our scripture and understanding the gospel and our spiritual depravity and our brokenness due to our sin, but also that I told my leaders, thank you so much for taking the time to be with the kids and to know their stories and to know what their family dynamic is like and to know what the brokenness in their past is like, because all of those is sharing Christ's love. And these kids need them. That's more the liberal side of things, right? And I also hit that we don't really do much with the activist side of things, and it maybe how could we do that? So I thought that was really helpful for our my team in Young Life. I thought that was awesome. The second thing I learned was the American dream is a dream deferred. Reading the Inner City Kids book, I really realized that the idea that anybody can make it in America is really a fallacy. This isn't to say that urban kids can't make a great life for themselves, but the odds are just so against them. Like the daily reality that they're carrying weapons, that they're surrounded by drug addicts, that drive-bys are a normal occurrence for them. I thought, how is it even possible for them to focus on school, right? So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the base level of any human are the physiological ones, like air, water, food, shelter. And some of these kids aren't getting water, food, and shelter, right? And the second level is the safety and the personal security, right? And so if they're not even able to have their base needs yet, how are they able to grow even more as an individual throughout life? They're so focused on just surviving and living that it's going to be really hard for them to learn about an English assignment that's coming up. So I think as far as how that is going to impact the youth serve, I just described that, but the solution to that is these kids need they need to be secured, and they're going to get that through just a ton of support through adults who care and who can understand. I kind of was dwelling on this thinking like, man, what can we actually do about this? Like, what could I actually do about this as a white kid living in middle class Roseville, because we got those kids in South Sac who are dealing with this type of struggles. And I want to help, but I think also the book talks about like the help needs to come from the inside, from the people who understand the culture. And so I would love to get my kids out there and my team out there and help in any way I can, but really I would need to understand the culture fully before I could help those people, because we may not be able to connect. I'm not sure, but it was really intriguing to me nonetheless. The last one is The Other Wes Moore. I was floored by that book. I thought it was so fascinating. I read the entire thing in one sitting, and it was just such a great book for me to learn about. It expanded my understanding of urban environments and the impact of adult relationships. The main theme that I figured in that book was when trouble arose, you have Wes Moore gets in trouble. Whenever trouble arose for him, there was an action that accompanied him going in a better way, and that was always by his parents or his grandparents or something like that. But the other Westmore didn't have that privilege, and he just kind of kept going down that road. So there was always some type of correction that led the other Westmore into a better place in life. And so for me, this just shows that the urban youth needs, they need adults to take action in their life, that when trouble arises, maybe it's making that huge leap and putting your kid in a military school. Maybe it's not that drastic, but obviously getting those kids out of that environment and into something else was a positive shift for the first Westmore. But maybe more realistically, for those who don't have the funds for it, it's parents and adults who care really being intentional about getting those kids off of the streets after school and into some type of community-oriented group where they could kind of grow and learn from other individuals that are not participating in those rough street life activities. So yeah, I would say that the other Westmore, I think that ministry, that would be the best way that I could describe how it would impact the youth served there, is that'd be the best way to do it, as I just described above. And then the last, or the aha moment that I had was when we watched the video on urbanization, and to find out that nearly 1 billion are going to live in slums, and that will double by 2030. I was just like, holy smokes, like that blew my mind. Americans are so sheltered from the reality of how so many are living, and it's just astounding that in just a few years, 2 billion people will be living slum life. And we just don't see it because it don't look pretty, and we don't want to see that. And so, we don't get exposed to that. Man. And I would say, I wish we had more time to explore Urban Jesus. I really liked the YWAM video, and how the instructor said that most of us in America would not like this Jesus if he were here in America. And he explained because Jesus was a poor illegal immigrant. That totally just like flips the perspective of Jesus on its head, because most Americans think of Jesus as a white guy who was moralistic and did good things and was a good teacher, right? But this, just the whole context of pulling it back, like Jesus was running from execution and genocide that he hid out illegally into another country, right? And that he was just always crossing cultural boundaries, and so you can't just put him in a box. And I think that is so cool, that Jesus can effectively transcend all cultures because he's been there, which I thought was just really, really cool. I would have loved to hear more about that because I thought the video was super impactful. Overall, I loved the course. I thought it was really, really enlightening, and I enjoyed the time and effort that you put into the class, Professor, to making sure that we had good content to read and intriguing articles and things that challenged us and gripped us. So I thought it was a fantastic class, and I'm really happy that I was able to take it with you. So keep doing what you're doing, and I really appreciate you. Bye.